At first, a lot of people treated survival like it was something you could manage with a few simple rules. Keep the door shut. Don't go where sickness is. Don't stand in foul air. If a street looks wrong, use another one. It sounds workable for about a day. Most people were reading danger from the street because nobody had a clean, reliable way to know what was happening. You looked out from an upper window or cracked a shutter and checked what had changed. A house that stayed closed too long. A door suddenly marked off. A bread seller who always shouted but didn't appear. Bells ringing at hours that felt off. A cart moving when carts usually weren't moving. That was often the morning report. So the first adjustment was small. Delay the errand. Don't send the child down that lane. Wait an hour and see if anyone comes out of that house. Then waiting created its own problem, because if everybody delayed at once, the market got more crowded later, or the baker sold out, or the water line got longer, and now the safer choice had pushed people into tighter contact somewhere else. Families started watching neighbors almost as much as they watched their own food stores. If the woman next door stopped opening her shutters, people noticed. If a servant from 2 houses down suddenly started fetching everything alone, people noticed that too. Nobody needed an announcement to understand a household was changing its habits. You could see it in who still came and went and who had disappeared behind the door. A lot of homes then tried to shrink themselves into one point of contact. One person went out. Everybody else stayed in. That person handled the bread, the water, the fuel, the gossip, the coin, the risk. It was a neat plan on paper. In practice, the whole house started revolving around one pair of hands. The person sent out came back, carrying more than supplies. People watched what they touched, where they put the basket, whether they set coin on the table or kept it in a pouch. Some households had the returning person strip off outer things near the door, or wash, or stand apart while questions were asked first. Did the market look thin? Who was missing? Was the butcher there? Were there carts? Did anyone cough near you? Even before the food was put away, the trip had to be reported. That changed the feeling inside the house. The errand runner was necessary, but people also edged around them a little. Not openly, not in some dramatic way. More like a bowl handed from farther off. A bench left between bodies. Sleeping places rearranged if the house had room for that. If it didn't, then everybody just carried the unease into the night and tried not to show it. Avoiding visitors seemed sensible too, until somebody had a reason to knock. Rent still existed. Work still existed. A customer might come asking for a finished item. A relative might send word. Somebody might need to borrow a tool. Then there was that ugly little pause before answering the door, where people tried to decide whether silence was safer or more suspicious. Staying inside worked best for households that already had enough in the room with them. A little grain, a little fuel, some money put aside, enough adults to divide tasks. A lot of people did not have that. Bread went stale or ran out. Ran low. Firewood got used whether plague was outside or not. Water did not carry itself. Chickens still made noise in the yard. Goats still had to be dealt with. If you had work paid by the day, staying home started costing food almost immediately. So people broke their own rules in pieces. First, it was just one trip for water. Then one quick stop for fuel. Then a half day because the workshop couldn't stay closed again. A woman who had decided not to leave the house might still have to step out to buy onions because there was nothing left to put in the pot. A man avoiding the market might still go because if he missed another day's hiring, the week was finished anyway. The house stopped feeling like a sealed place. It felt more like a leaking one. Every day indoors bought some distance from other people, but it also ate through supplies and patience. Tempers got shorter. Small things mattered too much. Who used the last clean cloth? Who forgot to latch the door? Who had been near the neighbor's wall talking too long? People weren't making grand speeches about danger. They were snapping over stools, cups, blankets, and whose turn it was to go outside. Then, someone in the house coughed at the wrong time, or woke with pain, or couldn't get warm, or looked bad enough that everybody else stopped pretending not to notice. Once that happened, the whole place had to be reorganized fast, and usually without enough space. If there was an extra room, that room became the sick room. If there wasn't, then a corner became the sick corner. A bed might be turned toward the wall. A curtain might be hung if the family had anything that could serve as one. Bedding got separated as much as possible. Bowls and cups started belonging to one person only. The path across the room changed. People began walking around one patch of floor as if it were a ditch. Then came the question nobody could solve neatly. Who was going to do the actual tending? Somebody had to bring water, empty bowls, wipe a face, adjust blankets, lift a body, listen for breathing, and answer if the sick person called in the night. In many homes, that fell to whoever had the strongest tie or the fewest options. A wife, a mother, an older daughter. Sometimes the one already most exposed simply kept going because there was no point pretending otherwise. The others kept their distance as best they could, but distance inside a small house is a thin thing. They still heard everything. They still slept a few steps away. They still had to pass the doorway. If food was cooked, the nurse had to carry it across the same floor everyone used. If waste needed taken out, somebody had to lift it and go through the front door with it. The danger was now moving both ways. Outside could come in, and inside could now follow you out. That created another ugly calculation. Do you let people know? Some households kept quiet as long as they could. Once neighbors knew, doors could close against you fast. People might stop coming near, which protected them but also cut off help, trade, and ordinary exchange. On the other hand, hiding sickness meant every knock at the door became harder to answer, and every borrowed object became an argument with yourself. Sometimes families started thinking about leaving only after the house no longer felt usable. But leaving a town during plague was not the clean escape people imagine. By the time many decided to go, roads already had too many people on them who had reached the same conclusion late. Getting out could begin with the gate itself. Was it open? Were guards asking questions? Did your face look healthy enough? Did you have somewhere to say you were going? A cart helped if you had one, but carts meant animals, and animals meant feed, and feed meant stopping. If you went on foot, then whatever you carried had to be worth the weight by noon, because by then the bundle was cutting into your hand and the road felt longer than it had in your head. Then there was the problem of arrival. Villages beyond town were not sitting there waiting to receive strangers kindly. A family turning up with packs and children did not look harmless. It looked like fresh trouble. So people argued at gates, or were told to move on, or were allowed in only grudgingly, or found lodging impossible because nobody wanted unknown bodies under the same roof. Food on the road was another trap. To travel, you needed provisions. To get provisions, you needed markets or friendly houses. To stop at markets or houses, you had to mix with strangers. A trip meant more doors, more wells, more hands, more questions, more chances to be refused. Some people got partway through that and turned back, which meant returning not to safety but to the same town they had already judged too dangerous to stay in. So plenty of people remained where they were and tried to carry on in a town that no longer worked in a steady way. Markets might still open, but they felt different at once. Fewer voices, gaps where stalls should be, goods laid out by someone's widow or son because the usual seller was gone. Buyers hanging back half a step while still needing the bread badly enough to come closer. Handling money became one of those small daily frictions people could not avoid. Coin had to pass from one hand to another. You could hesitate for a second, but not forever, because there were others waiting. So people used little habits. Drop the coin instead of pressing it into the palm. Set goods down and then step back. Wipe the hand on the tunic after. None of it solved much, but routines gave people something to do with their nerves. Church-going, where it continued, also turned into a matter of timing and spacing. Some still went because that was one of the few stable habits left. Others avoided crowds but wanted prayers said. So one person might go for the household while the rest stayed back. People watched who stood where, who came in coughing, who left quickly. Even there, eyes were working constantly. Workshops showed the change in a different way. You could walk past a place and see work interrupted mid-task. Tools still there. Materials still waiting. Door shut. Then next door some other shop was suddenly busy because labor had thinned, and whoever remained was taking whatever work they could. Surviving workers might find more demand and less help at the same time. A man could have more jobs offered to him than before and still be in no position to enjoy that, because he was now doing the work of 2 missing people while trying not to touch half the town. Trust narrowed. People stopped dealing broadly and started circling around the few names they still felt they could risk. The baker they knew. The cousin who had not shown signs. The priest they had already seen 3 times, and therefore considered, if not safe, at least familiar. New faces were harder. New servants, new lodgers, new customers, new laborers. Every one of them came with a pause before agreement. Even neighborliness changed shape. Help did not vanish, but it became more careful and more awkward. A pot of food might be left at a door instead of handed over. Information was passed from window to window. Questions were asked from the street. People still looked after one another, just with more wood, stone, and air in between when they could manage it. Then, after the worst stretch in a place, another set of problems arrived. The bells might slow. Fewer carts might pass. Streets might look usable again. But now homes and shops were half empty, and surviving people had to decide what to do with things left behind. An empty house was not just a sad sight. It was also blankets, tools, benches, stored grain, pots, maybe a better bed than the one you had. People who had been short of everything all through the sickness now had to look at abandoned goods and decide how badly they needed them. Fear did not disappear just because the owner was gone. A useful object could still sit there with everybody wondering whether to touch it. Servants and laborers who survived found openings, but those openings came wrapped in uncertainty. A household missing 3 people suddenly needed hands. A workshop without apprentices needed anyone competent. Someone who had once had little bargaining power could now be asked to move, take over, or step into work above their old place. But taking the offer might mean entering rooms where the last occupants had only recently died, sleeping in unfamiliar quarters, sorting through clothes, bedding, and tools no one else wanted to handle first. Property without clear caretakers made people bolder and warier at the same time. Neighbors looked in on places. Relatives reappeared. Claims started quietly. So did scavenging. A person might tell himself he was only borrowing a pot from a dead household because his own kitchen had nothing left. Then somebody else noticed a stool missing, and now there was another dispute in a street already running thin on patience. Recovery, if you can call it that, did not mean people relaxed back into old habits. Streets had changed their cast. The familiar face at one stall was gone and replaced by a nephew. The woman who used to lend salt was gone, and her door stayed shut for a different reason now. The house stood empty. A survivor stepping back into regular movement had to learn the town again almost like a newcomer, except every corner also carried memory. And day to day, the same small calculations kept going. Is that house active again or only being cleared? Is that worker available or already taken by another household? Is it worth renting a room in a place where the last family died? Do you take the better blanket if it came from the wrong bed? Do you hire the stranger because you need help now, or keep struggling alone because at least you know your own walls? So even when the dying eased, people were still making decisions in that same cramped, practical way. What to touch, where to go, who to trust, which errand could wait, which one could not. One week the problem was bread. Then it was water. Then who would nurse? Then whether to flee. Then whether to come back. Then what to do with a town that had room in it again but did not feel open so much as unfinished, with one more door to knock on and no certainty about who, if anyone, was going to answer.